A Persona game isn't truly a Persona game without its characters, and Persona 5 has arguably one of the most iconic social links compared to the other Persona games. In this video, we're going to be ranking the worst confidants of all time, all the way to the best confidants in the game. For each and every confidant, I will be explaining their backstory, and I will also be explaining the reasoning for the rankings. The rankings will be from S to D tier, because I don't really think anyone deserves an F tier in this list. So let's get started. The worst confidant of all time has to be Mishima. Mishima is basically that guy in your life that really wants to hang out with you, but you just don't really like him. His story is basically him understanding that it's not all about him, but also other people. The story itself I think is actually pretty good, but the problem I have with Mishima is that I just don't like him. I think he's an annoying, whiny little bitch. Like, bro, I don't give a fuck about you, please fuck off. And he keeps doing this fucking thing where he's like, oh, I know you guys are the Phantom Thieves and I made an app, that's why I'm part of this team. Like, shut the fuck up, Mishima. And that's why he goes to F tier. The second worst confidant we have is Torino. The second worst confidant in the game is Oya. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't think anyone likes Oya. I was just hanging out with Oya so I could hang out more with Lalachan. Oya's story is basically her wanting to solve cases and write it to the public, but her shitty boss doesn't want her to do that, and at the end of the confidant, you basically help her with her boss and everything goes great. If this was about Lalachan, it would have been an A tier, but sadly, it's Oya, so it's going to D tier. Shinya is an interesting one. His story, I think, is written really well. He's a child who has a single mother, and he struggles to have a good relationship with his mom due to her being overworked and stressed. He basically wants to win everything in his life so that he doesn't have to be a burden to his mom. At the end of his confidant, he learns that winning isn't everything. The most important thing to him is happiness. Shinya is a really good written character, but I'm not a fan of his confidant because of how well it's hidden. You essentially have to complete some requests in order to get to him, so I'm gonna be putting him in C tier. The next character is Makoto. She's hated and loved by a lot of people. Her story basically begins with her saying that she's pretty much useless outside of academics. She makes a new friend, who Makoto realizes that her friend is being scammed. So in the entire confidant, you're basically helping her to save her friend from a scammer. I love Makoto. I think her character is designed extremely well, but the confidant story I think is a little boring. So I'm gonna give her a C tier. Akechi is a little complicated. Just like his character, his social link is all over the place. The entire social link for Akechi is just him going on a date with Joker, and Akechi on its own is a really interesting character. He hates Joker, but at the same time, Joker is an extremely important person to him. The writing is alright at best. You basically just go on a date with him, but I would say the final hangout with him was pretty good, and it was quite impactful as it truly showed who Akechi really is. Personally, I didn't really like Akechi in the base game, but in Royale, his character is written beautifully. Sadly, this is a confidant ranking, so I would have to put him in B tier. An is a little of a 50-50. The confidant starts with her dealing with the after effects of Kamoshida's actions, and this includes Shiho. Shiho, as we all know, was the worst victim of Kamoshida's actions, and in An's confidant, An is trying her best to be stronger for Shiho and for herself. I like the story a lot. I think the interaction between An and Shiho is just adorable. The problem, as An pursues her career in modeling, she meets her rival, Mika. Mika is a bitch. She would do anything and even dirty things to win. I didn't really like this part of the story because it felt really dragged in a way, but near the end of the confidant, Shiho is nearly recovered and it was beautiful. For this, I am giving An a B tier. Now we have Chihaya. Chihaya is a fortune teller. She basically scams you at the start of her confidant, but after some time you learn that she was banished from her village due to her strange power of reading into the future. In order to survive, she teams up with horrible people and ends up being forced to scam people. Throughout her confidant, she learns that her fate can be changed. You then help her to break free of those horrible people and get her life back on track. I wasn't really a fan of Chihaya's first few confidant ranks. I think it was more about other characters than it was about her. Chihaya's confidant starts to get really good after knowing that Chihaya was forced to be a scammer, and that's where her confidant for me really picks up. So yeah, I'm giving her a B tier. Next up, we have Futaba. Futaba's confidant starts with her wanting to complete a checklist of sorts. The checklist contained things that would push her out of the house so that she could have a normal life. Throughout the confidant, you complete some of these tasks, like going to school or going out to buy some games. In the middle of her confidant, she remembers her old friend, Kana. But not long after that, they realized that Kana was being abused by her parents. After saving Kana, the checklist was nearly completed. At the end of her Confidant, Futaba makes a promise to Kana that they will go to school together. Futaba's story is a really good one. The story of someone trying their best to step out into the world to make their life better is just really touching. The fact that there are a lot of people out there, just like Futaba, trying their best to step out into the world. And this is how you make a nerd likable. Unlike you, Mishima, fuck you. And for that, Futaba gets an A tier. Hifumi is arguably the best looking character in the entire game. Hifumi's Confidant starts with her wanting to become a professional shogi player like her dad, but after some time, she learns that her mother has been fixing her matches to make her daughter famous so that she could benefit from the success of Hifumi. Joker then changes her mom's heart and she proceeds to lose her first professional match. At the end of the Confidant, Hifumi is happy to finally be fighting against an opponent at their full strength. Hifumi's story is extremely relatable. Her mom wants the best for her daughter, but ends up being extremely inconsiderate and only thinking for herself. This story revolves around her pursuing her own dreams instead of her mom's. Overall, the story is amazing and Hifumi just looks amazing, so I would give her an A tier as well. Finally, we have the infamous Kawakami. Kawakami is super hot. Her Confidant starts after we learn that our homeroom teacher is actually a maid outside of school. Over the course of her Confidant, we realize that she is doing all of this to pay off the guardians of her former student. Takase was killed in a car crash. The guardians of Takase then proceeded to blame Kawakami for overworking him and giving him special treatment. Over time, Kawakami starts to get overworked and ends up in a hospital. Joker then proceeds to change the guardians' hearts and Kawakami quits her maid job and lives happily ever after. Kawakami's story is amazing. Seeing a person working their ass off every single day for something that they didn't even do just breaks my heart. And her story was extremely touching and she's so fucking hot, so yeah, A tier for Kawakami. Haru is a personal favorite of mine, so it might get a little biased. Her Confidant starts with her struggling with the company after her father dies. She doesn't know who to trust or what to do, and she's also being forced to marry a fucking dickbag. Throughout her Confidant, she expresses her love for gardening and explains to you that she wants to open a coffee shop in the future. Haru says fuck you to the arranged marriage, and at the end of the Confidant, she explains that she wants Okumura foods to go back to its old roots. Our story is simple, but extremely effective. Losing a family member is extremely difficult, and not only that, she has to deal with the entire company, and that is a lot for a high schooler. Haru gets an A tier, just because I like her. Next up, we have the most important Confidant in the entire game, Maruki. His Confidant starts with you agreeing to help him with a certain project. Throughout his Confidant, he would ask you questions about mental things to help with his project. At the end of his Confidant, he tells you that his girlfriend was killed in a break-in and he wants to learn to remove sadness. Personally, Maruki is a character that truly shines in the third semester. During his Confidant in the base game, he just felt like a guy that wanted to make the world a better place. Not that it was a bad thing or anything, it's just that he was a little bland. For this reason alone, I'm gonna give him a B tier. Don't get me wrong, I love him in Royale, just not as much as his Confidant. Then we have the hot goth doctor. Kemi's Confidant starts with you becoming a guinea pig for her experiments to develop a certain medicine. Halfway through the Confidant, you learn that Takemi was blacklisted from hospitals. Apparently, she used to work in a hospital developing a cure for a certain disease, but the cure got rushed and was used without her permission, causing the patient's critical condition. And that was why she was blacklisted. The former patient then visits Takemi in her clinic, and she uses her newly found cure to cure her patient. Takemi's story is extremely sweet. At the end of the day, she just wants to help people. A 10 out of 10 story, and she's goth, so yeah, S tier instantly. Ryuji is arguably the best bro you could ask for. His Confidant starts with him wanting to re-establish the track club after Kamoshida disbanded it. He disbanded it because Ryuji got into a fight with him. He tries his best to be on good terms with his former track friends, but he gets beaten up. We then discover that the track team is getting reinstated, but by the hands of Yamauchi, which was a supporter of Kamoshida. Joker then proceeds to secretly record them in a restaurant while they were talking about wanting to be the next Kamoshida. At the end of the Confidant, Ryuji leaks the audio and gets Yamauchi fired. He also expresses that he couldn't have done this without Joker and how important it is to work together. Ryuji is a really good character. You could see from the beginning of the Confidant to the end of it that he has grown a lot. He speaks a lot about his past and why he wants to move on. Ryuji, in my opinion, has one of the best character developments, and for that he gets an S tier. Next up, we have Yusuke. His confidant starts with him struggling to draw as he feels that he has been corrupted by Madarame. Throughout the confidant, Joker and Yusuke travel to various places to get his creative spirit back. This leads to him having a better understanding of the human heart, and it helps him draw again. Yes, the story on paper sounds pretty normal. When I was actually doing his confidant, I found myself having a lot of fun, as there are a lot of funny scenes with Yusuke, and it also shows how Yusuke has grown as a character. So yeah, Yusuke gets an A tier. Essentially your father figure in the game, Sojiro. His confidant starts with him teaching you to make coffee and curry, but then he expresses that he struggles to be a good father for Futaba. At the end of the confidant, Futaba's uncle shows up and demands Sojiro to pay him money. If not, he would blame him for abusing Futaba. Joker and Futaba then change the uncle's hearts and they lived happily ever after. At the end of the confidant, you visit Wakaba's grave, who was Futaba's mom. Sojiro then tells her that everything is okay now. This broke my heart. I nearly cried when I was playing this. It was so heartwarming seeing Sojiro, despite all of his circumstances, still tries his best for Joker and Futaba. He is getting an S tier for being the best dad. Another dad in the game, who is Iwai. Iwai is a model kit seller, and his confidant starts with him recruiting Joker to help around the shop, but they both get dragged into a former gang member, Tsuda. Tsuda has been trying to threaten Iwai to do some illegal shit. We then find out that Iwai has an adopted son, Kaoru. Joker then proceeds to change Tsuda's heart to stop this shit, but Tsuda's friend, Masa, tries to kidnap Kaoru, then threatens to tell Kaoru about the things that Iwai did in the past, but Kaoru doesn't give a fuck and says that Iwai is still his father. I may not have given a good story explanation of Iwai, but this confidant was extremely entertaining. Iwai is just such a cool character and shows that he just wants to be a good father for his son. Iwai gets an A tier. Last but not least, Kasumi, or should I say Sumire. Her confidant starts with her being pressured by her gymnastics coach, saying that she has a mental block, so Joker then agrees to help her if she would be able to train him. At the end of it, Joker helps her with her mental block, but she still gets 3rd place. During the 3rd semester, Kasumi, as we all know, is actually Sumire. We then find out that Sumire has been trying to be Kasumi after her death because she doesn't have the confidence to surpass Kasumi. Later in the confidant, we learn that Sumire was constantly in Kasumi's shadow, but Kasumi was always cheering for her, and her confidant ends with her accepting herself. I really liked Sumire's confidant. The first 5 ranks felt normal, but it was the other 5 that really surprised me. And I really like the way that this confidant was set up. Personality wise, I think this was extremely accurate. So I'm gonna give Kasumi or Sumire an S tier. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys did not take this video too seriously. If you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.